Welcome to the series on ecosystem biodiversity. In this series, I'm going to be talking about what biodiversity is and how it's measured. I'm going to talk about the process of change within an ecosystem called ecological succession, how systems change over time and recover after disruptances. And then I'm also going to talk about how biodiversity helps ecosystems survive uh, when disruptions do take place. Finally, I'm going to discuss at length the value of ecosystems biodiversity for humans and why we should care about preserving it. All right, so if you are a student in the Summit platform for middle school science, this is the right video for you. But if you are not, and you need to learn about those topics, they could still be useful. So I hope you take advantage of it. On this first video, I'm going to be talking about how ecosystems change over time through a process called ecological succession. So sometimes ecosystems suffer as a result of disruptances. A huge herd of wildebeest and zebras passing through a grassland or shrubland will kind of ravish it. When a flood happens, trees and landslides, lots of the earth gets destroyed. A tree falls in the forest and suddenly a gap happens in it. A wildfire clears most of the trees that were living in a place. A beaver builds a dam and kills a bunch of stuff in its pond. And then after a while, the dam falls apart and then life has to come back to normal. There is an invasive species that comes in and eradicates loss of the life. But then after that invasive species gets removed, how can the ecosystem recover? Or how does it colonize in the first place a place that didn't have life before? Like a brand new volcanic island or land that wasn't there before. After volcanic eruption, it covers the land and the soil with a brand new lava. How does life start in a place like that? That is what succession is about. The process of recovery, which is what we call a secondary succession after disruption, or the start in the first place, which is called primary succession of life. So again, the difference between the two of them is that primary succession means when life came first. It's the idea that you started from exposed rock, nothing, no soil, no life. There was never life here before. Complete eradication of life or no evidence of life there being there before, a brand new island. So a volcanic eruption would be an example of that. A secondary succession would be more about a recovering. When there's a little bit of soil left, there's some evidence of life. Some of the life that used to be there survived, right? So that's the difference between the two of them. Now, how does this process actually work? So I'm starting as an example of primary succession, but secondary succession is similar, except that it will be faster and you already start further out. Now, it usually starts with bare rock. Now, that bare rock has to be a little bit eroded at least. And then at that point, lichen can actually start growing under the rock. Now, lichen is the simplest ecosystem in the planet. It's just basically an algae. That's right. Algae can live even outside of water. Right? It just needs to be humid. They definitely live in fresh water in the ocean as well, though. So carried by currents, algae forms a symbiotic relationship with the fungus. And then the algae makes food, the fungus breaks down the food back to nutrients. And they live on a back and forth cycle powered by sunlight. And as they grow over the surface of the rock, they actually help with chemicals the process of breaking down that rock. And over millions of years and hundreds of thousands of years, in the process of erosion, little by little, those rocks will be broken down to smaller pieces, and the lichen will die over time and start forming soil. And then as soon as you have something like that, small annual plants and lichens will continue to grow, weeds, and then you get grasses because the soil is getting richer and richer and deeper and deeper. And then you can actually start getting things like shrubs and some trees. And finally, you get at the end of the process where you have a bunch of different types of trees, most of them able to live through shade because of all the competition there's going to be at that point for the sunlight. So in the beginning, when you have lichen and small plants, there's barely any competition for sunlight. But by the time the trees start to grow, they replace the grasses almost because there's too much shade, so the grass and shrubs can't really live very well. So the beginning is called pioneer stage. So pioneer species are going to be things like lichen for sure, and then the weeds and annual plants that grow at first when there's not too much soil. The intermediate stage is when you start to get some trees but there's still enough light hitting the floor for you to get shrubs and grasses. The last stage, which is called Climax community, you're not going to see a lot of shrubs and grass because of all the tree cover that happens. Now, of course, not every community gets to that stage because not every place is a forest. So you have grasslands that will never go beyond that. But that has to do more with the amount of nutrients, the amount of water, and the sunlight that the place receives, determining what kind of ecosystem is going to be. But the general principle that you're going to start from nothing and get those pioneer species, and then the formation of soil, and then you're going to get some grass and shrubs and trees, and then the only trees that can support and live with shade is what's called succession. Now, how long does this take? Hundreds of years, if not thousands of years, especially if you include the erosion part at the start. All right? So that is how succession happens. On the next video, I'm going to be talking about how changes or disruption to the ecosystem can lead to changes in the populations that live within it. I will see you guys then.